Howdy and welcome to the Mighty Mo Church Channel. I'm Chuck. This video is episode 2 of the series, Have I Lived the Same Life More Than Once? Now, in the previous episode, I talked about Mr. X and how I think in one version of his life he died in 1960, as his tombstone would indicate. And I think also in one version of my life, I also died in 1960. I think somehow our deaths were connected, although I don't really understand how. I can make guesses. I can try to, think back, get past that time barrier. But, when you do that, you can't be totally sure of your memories. Now, in this version of my life, when I was 3 years of age, I almost drowned. So I kind of think that perhaps, maybe, when I died in 1960, it was from drowning, because that was an episode in my life, this version of my life, where I almost drowned. So perhaps in the previous version, I actually did. But that doesn't explain how our deaths would be connected, how my death would be connected to the death of Mr. X. It doesn't really explain that. Now, in this version of my life, I didn't drown. My mother was there. She saved me. Now, what I'm about to talk about is the idea that maybe there's a reason she wasn't there in the previous version of my life to save me. This might be why. Now, when I was 2 years of age, my parents owned a ranch as well as a place in town. On the ranch, they had horses and all. They caught a young man sneaking around to ride the horses. They didn't think a big deal about it. He seemed okay. He wasn't hurting the horses. He liked to ride them. He was exercising them. They didn't think a big deal about it. They really didn't give him any reason to sneak around, yet he liked to sneak around. Now, the way the ranch house was laid out is it had the upstairs and it had a basement. You couldn't access the basement from the top part of the house. But the basement was where the laundry was. So for my mother to do the laundry, she had to leave the top part of the house, walk around the house, go to the basement door, go inside the basement to do the laundry. Now, understand, this was a totally different place from the ranch that my father and I know now. It was a totally different ranch, a different place. Okay, so when I was 2 years of age, my mother went to do the laundry, and I was left upstairs. And for some reason, I got really scared. Although I was reminded of the event later, I do have an episodic memory of this event, even though I was just 2 years of age. I remember what was going through my mind, or at least part of what was going through my mind when I got scared. And somehow I knew I needed to lock the door. I kind of think I was having a premonition of some kind. I think I was remembering something from a previous version of my life that motivated me to do what I did. So I got scared, and I got it in my mind, I needed to lock the door. So somehow, even though I was just 2 years of age, I managed to get up to lock the door. I locked the door. I locked my mother out of the house. So yeah, she would remind me of the event, but I do have an episodic memory of the event. Now, my mother was in the basement when I locked the door. Now, I think by locking that door, I actually did change time. I think I did change time. I think that I stopped someone from coming into the house. I think I stopped someone from coming into the house. And if they had been in the house when my mother came back upstairs with the laundry, I think she'd have been hurt. I think she'd have been killed. Now, the young man that rode the horses, it turned out he wasn't okay. He really wasn't okay. He murdered 3 people. He threw 4 people down a well. He thought he had killed 4 people, but the 4th person he hadn't killed. The 4th person was able to climb out of the well. And he went to the police and relayed his version of what happened, and the young man was arrested. The young man was not a serial killer. There was a motive for the killing. So the young man, wasn't necessarily a threat to us. Somehow in my mind, I kind of got the idea that the young man was not a threat to us, but the people he was hanging around with, the people that was hanging around him, I kind of think they were a threat. I think they were a threat. And I think by my locking the door, I saved my mother's life. And by saving her life, she was there at the pool. And by her being at the pool, she saved my life. I saved her life by locking the door. She saved my life at the pool. I think that's how time got changed. But of course, it might not be that simple. previously in one of my videos, I pointed out there's synchronicity within the system, and that's one thing that points to this world being computer-like. There is synchronicity in the system. I'm not going to replay what I was talking about in the other video, but other people have come up with the same realization. There is synchronicity. There's a reason that even out in the country, you will have 4 cars that may come to a 4-way stop at the same time, and then they take their turns, they go through it, and then you look back in the rearview mirror. There's no more traffic coming to that 4-way stop. You don't notice that in the city, but in the country you notice it. That's a type of synchronicity. There's lots of synchronicities within the system, and part of that goes back to that the world is computer-like. Part of it also goes back to the idea that I also mentioned in one of my previous videos, that in this computer-type system where time is computer code, that computer code time likes to run back into its original bank or approximate its original bank. It may not go back exactly into the original bank, but it likes to do its best to approximate back the way it originally was. Now, because I almost drowned in this life when I was 3 in 1960, I want to make the assumption that what almost happened in this life happened in a previous version of this life. But like I said, it's probably not that simple. Okay, without my mother there, I might not would have been at that pool. But because of synchronicity, I still would have been at a swimming hole, just not that swimming hole. She wouldn't have been there, so we would have been somewhere else. And maybe instead of a swimming pool, we were at a lake. And this is stretching it. This is just a supposition. This is, okay, what if? But okay, so we were at a lake in my previous version of my life. And at that lake or river, somehow I fell in or was swimming or something happened and I went under. And Mr. X, he went in to try to save me. But instead of saving me, we both drowned. That would connect my death and Mr. X's death together in a previous version of his life. Now, that's a stretch, I realize. Now, there was a conversation that I had with my older sister. This goes back to when I was 3, and this is shortly after, I think it was shortly after. It may have been a good while after. I'm really not sure exactly when the conversation happened, but it's a conversation that is stuck in my head for some reason through the years. And in the conversation, my older sister was telling me about a young boy that drowned in a river. Now, I'm not sure whether she was relaying an event that had recently happened that people were talking about, or whether she was talking about a dream she had. I'm really not sure which it was. All I know is that when she told me the story about the young boy that drowned, it was like I was there. It's just like I went there to the event. I could actually feel it happening. And it's something that stuck with me through the years. Now, when my grandmother would tell stories, she'd weave the tale, and often I would feel like I would go back in time to whatever event that my grandmother was talking about. It's like the way she told the story would pull me back to the event. But my sister, she was young too at this time when she told me the story, and she really wasn't going into a whole lot of detail. It was more like she just mentioned something that had happened, but it was like the details just flashed in my head, and I went right there to the event. And so that kind of fits with what I'm thinking may have happened, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. All I know is that conversation that, really wasn't that outstanding in itself is something that has stuck with me through the years. And that's because when she was telling me the event, it was like I was sucked right there to the event. And of course it could be because, a similar thing had happened to me and, where I'd almost drowned in the swimming pool. And so that's the reason it resonated with me is, I remembered, going under the water and that feeling, that if you've ever been in that situation, it's not a good feeling. And that's something, that sticks with you. So it could just be because something similar had happened to me that what she was saying resonated with me. So it may not actually lend itself to the idea of what I'm theorizing. I'm not sure. Now, also back to when I think I saved my mother's life by locking that door, I do have a memory of a man threatening my mother, and it's not really something I don't think that actually happened in this reality. In other words, nobody's ever talked about it or anything. My mother never talked about it, so it's like it didn't happen in this reality. But it is a memory that I have. It's a clear memory of a man threatening my mother, and it goes back to when we lived on the ranch. And so I'm kind of thinking that is sort of a memory from that other reality, that other version of my life. But there again, I can't prove it. I do know that the man that was threatening my mother, he wasn't a young man. He was probably in his 30s. He was slightly balding, and so that doesn't fit with the description of the young man who had been riding the horses and who had killed 3 people and tried to kill 4 people. The description doesn't. I never saw the young man who rode the horses, or I don't remember seeing him. If I did see him, I don't remember it. But the person that's in that memory of the man threatening my mother, he was an older man. I don't think they were the same person. Now I have another memory that's kind of hazy. It's dark. It's a memory that's been persistent, but I don't really know what it adds up to, or if it adds up to anything. Back behind the ranch house, there was a pond, and I always associate this memory with that pond. And it's like it's dark, it's night, and there's all these people with flashlights, and they're walking around, and it's just frantic, and it's like they're searching for somebody. And I don't think that's a memory from this reality. It's got to be from the other reality, the other version of my life. I don't think it's from this reality, but it's something that's been persistent. It, at times it's just one of those memories that pops back. I guess it's possible that in the other reality, instead of me dying when I was 3, like I was thinking, that perhaps I died at the same time my mother died in that other reality, that we died at the same time, we were murdered at the same time, and then our bodies were dumped in the pond behind the ranch house. And my memory of people searching the pond area, it's I was watching it as a ghost. I was in that kind of, it is the kind of the perspective, really. It is kind of the perspective, the way I was seeing the frantic searching. It was like a overall view that it does, because I couldn't have been a child looking down. I never really, unless I was standing like on a hill or something and looking down. Could have been standing on a hill or something looking down, seeing the flashlights, or looking through a window and seeing the people searching. But it is like I'm looking down toward the frantic activity around the pond. That is the way it seems. But if just a hypothesis, if I did die and my mother died, we both died that same day, and people were searching around the pond trying to find our bodies. But see, it goes back to, I remember, and from that other reality, I remember that Mr. X's dog. I remember playing with that dog. Was I playing with that dog as a ghost? Did I remember the dog from where I was playing with it as a ghost? And if I died earlier in that other reality, if I died earlier than what I think I died, then how does Mr. X tie into it? Because I just have this feeling that somehow Mr. X ties into it. He died in 1960 in the other reality. He was a good guy as far as I know. In this reality, he most certainly was a good guy as far as I know. He was a good guy. So I don't know. But that memory is like it means something, because it wouldn't keep coming back to me if it didn't mean something. But what does it mean? Much thanks for watching and listening. I do appreciate it. Thank you.